Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Sorry I haven't been able to post much lately. I've been really busy and kind of got sick there for a while, but we're back to the regularly scheduled programming, and today I want to talk about kind of how the OP11 meta has been shaping up. It's been out in the East now for a couple of weeks, and I have some flagship data that I want to look at and kind of make a tier list for kind of like leading up to April, up until the bans, kind of like what the new meta is looking like, and just wanted to make a tier list and give you guys kind of like my opinions on how the meta has been shaping up, how I've been feeling about it since I've been playing in it for the past couple weeks. And yeah, just gonna be a fun little tier list video. So as always, these are all just my opinions, take everything with a grain of salt, and let's just have some fun. But without any further ado, let's jump in and let's get started. All right, let's get started. I first want to, I'll have them up on the screen here, but I want to take a look at the essentially 3 weeks of flagship data. The first one is going to be the first week of March, and this is before OP11 is legal in the larger tournaments like flagships, and if there would have been a CS, etc., or like 3-on-3s and stuff like that. So as you can see, Green Purple Luffy came on the scene in EVO2 and kind of just like wrecked everything, became a kind of little bit of a menace. And once people kind of figured out how to beat Doflamingo with GP Luffy, then it was just off to the races. And I think he has a really good matchup against Teach. He beats Enel, he can beat Dofi. As you can see here, he had 30 wins, 30 flagship wins in the first week. And you can just see here, like there's 30 GP, 21 Teach, 11 Dofi, 10 Enel, 8 Lucci. So like nothing outside of GP Luffy, like nothing too crazy. A lot of the top leaders were still kind of at the top. But let's take a look. So this is the second week of March. So OP11 is now legal. And like I was expecting Blue Purple Luffy to kind of like at the very start like make some waves. Everyone knew he was going to be strong because we saw how strong he was in the first like week of testing before he was even legal in flagships and 3-on-3s and stuff like that. But holy crap, he got 56 wins in the first legal week of OP11. GP Luffy dropped down to 17, and we started to see kind of like immediately started to see stuff like Zoro and Betty and Bonnie pop off more because they have strong matchups into Blue Purple. It was kind of unexpected though. That's a lot. 56 for just the first week is kind of insane. I'd be curious to see if any other new leader has been able to get those numbers at the same amount like in the first week. And then just looking at the third week here, you can see Blue Purple's numbers dropped off a little bit, but it looks very similar. The other strong deck into Blue Purple Luffy, which was Red Green Smoker, also started making some more waves. You can see like Teach and Dofi and Lucci kind of hanging out there too. Blue Purple Luffy and Green Purple Luffy were kind of just like the dominant forces for the past couple of weeks. And I thought that Green Purple Luffy would basically be able to like kind of overcome Blue Purple Luffy after the first like week or two. And I still think, like all things considered, I still think Green Purple Luffy was the stronger deck for the first like week or two. But I think people kind of just started figuring out the Green Purple Luffy matchup is still pretty difficult for Blue Purple. But I think Blue Purple Luffy, and this is what I wasn't accounting for, Blue Purple Luffy is able to basically like have a better matchup spread overall, and is just so consistent and so like overpowering and ridiculous in its strength, and it's just like its resources that you get late game, that I think it's a deck that a lot of people gravitate towards. And I think it became very reminiscent of that like Sakazuki tier 0 kind of thing. If you ask me if Blue Purple Luffy is tier 0, I would say no. I think he still loses really bad to like certain aggro decks, and there are other decks like Bonnie and Red Green Smoker that have good matchups into him. And I still think Green Purple Luffy gives him a run for his money, but I think it's a very strong, just inherently very strong deck, and I think a lot of people are gravitating towards it, and you can do a lot with it. I still don't think the lists have been fully cracked, and they change. Like Blue Purple Luffy has to adapt every single week to like the changing meta and the counter picks that are coming after him. So it's been really interesting. But those are the numbers. Blue Purple Luffy, just in my mind, has outperformed more than I thought he even would, which is really interesting to see. And let's start the tier list here. We have 1, 1.5, and 2, which I'm considering basically the main tiers here. 1 is just the best decks in the format. 1.5 I think is either just things that are generically also really strong, or things that have good matchups into both like the top decks that we're going to put up there. And then 2 would be like a little bit more of the outliers where you could still see them winning a couple of flagships or a few like unofficial tournaments, topping at an unofficial tournament, things like that. And then 3 is going to be kind of like all the rest. Maybe they have a good matchup into the tier 1 leaders, but they don't really have anything else going for them, or they're like kind of strong, or they're kind of in like the starter deck, waiting room, OP12, OP13 kind of waiting room, like just need some more support. And then I have the spice tier here, which I already just filled out. These are the leaders that I think are similar to tier 3, where it's like some of them I think have just good matchups into the top tier, and just either need a little bit of support or need to be cooked more. Like I think this starter deck Black Luffy has some really interesting new strong mechanics with the new Garp that was released in OP11. Stuff like Boa I think just needs a little bit more time to cook. I think Rage is really strong. It's just like missing a few pieces, or just needs the right time in the meta to come up. Red Green Odin similarly. And then like red Nika Luffy and Chopper are just really strong aggro decks, and aggro is very strong right now. So I just wanted to get that tier out of the way. As always, we have our F for Fallen Heroes. Shout out to Sakazuki and Red Purple Law. But let's jump into it. Let's get started. All right, so tier 1. We're just going to do this. I think these are the 2 decks that are at the top. I don't think that's like a hot take or anything. I mean, some people would even maybe say it's like should be like that, but I don't think so. I think Green Purple Luffy is still really strong, and I do think that Green Purple Luffy has like a few more weaknesses maybe just overall, but in the same vein that like Fortress decks, decks that can run ACOS Kid, or just even out aggro Green Purple Luffy himself, the way he loses to that. I also believe that Blue Purple just has the same amount of weaknesses and the same kinds of weaknesses, where he's just really weak to certain rush aggro decks and is not able to tech for everything. Like thankfully in One Piece, even if you have a best deck in the format, they're not really able to tech for everything. So there's always going to be certain decks that can beat it, and we'll talk about those decks a little bit. I am going to make a video of the decks that can beat Blue Purple Luffy. I think it's a really interesting concept, like kind of what's going on in the meta right now, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, let's just stick to the plan. So that's tier 1 in my mind, and then tier 1.5, I'm just going to start throwing some leaders up there. So our boy Zoro is making waves, doing crazy things right now, and is very impressive how strong he's able to be into not only just blue purple but also green purple, which I think is very important. Red Green Smoker has been kind of like, we saw how powerful he is against Green Purple Luffy in like the Japan finals, the national finals. He also is very strong into Blue Purple. I would say a lot of these decks in tier 1.5 are like kind of 50-50 into the like either Blue Purple or GP, but Red Green Smoker, I think for the most part, unless Blue Purple is specifically teched to handle it, I think is actually slightly favored against Blue Purple, which is really strong and not something that I can say about all these decks. I'm going to put Bonnie up here in 1.5. Just having a good matchup into Green Purple and then a good matchup into Blue Purple, same kind of thing. I do think Red Green Smoker has a slightly favored matchup into Blue Purple, whereas like Bonnie, I would probably, just to kind of like, if like both players are good, I think it's 50-50, and then just depending on where the techs for the meta are at, Bonnie could be slightly favored. Like if they're running the 9-cost Zoros, not everyone runs Red Rock, not everyone can like find the space for Red Rock in Blue Purple Luffy. So it's just like sometimes that really is just like all you need is to get a Zoro down and then Blue Purple Luffy loses. But it's never that simple. Like most of the time it's actually not that simple. There's always more things that are complicated, and you don't need Red Rock to still survive against Zoro, but it does take a great deal of like knowing the matchup and still seeing the cards that you need to see. Because as crazy as Blue Purple Luffy is, he can still low roll. I've practiced with some friends and I've seen them do like terrible bad low rolls, and it's like, oh okay, this deck is not invincible. Like it is possible to just not see what you need in the first couple of turns that you're using the leader effect, and that normally snowballs into just them losing. Let's see what else we got here. I'm gonna put Bello Betty up here too. These are like the two kind of like crazy aggro decks that are doing really well right now. Bello Betty, like Zoro too, I think is like 50-50 or slightly favored into blue-purple. Same kind of thing for GP. Bello Betty, I think, is just completely favored into blue-purple. Similar to how I think Smoker is actually favored into blue-purple. Just because while Smoker has like the consistency of finding 5-cost Smoker and just running 4 Hody so that you normally see at least 1 per game, and having searchable Tashigi and Smoker, and then the leader effect to be able to get the number of attacks early on that you need, Bello Betty just has the explosiveness to just make it impossible for Luffy to kind of like withstand everything. And Zoro just has like a little bit slower plan than Betty, but like going maybe even more wide, and just the 1 Dawn, the plus 1k with the leader effect is just so strong. So really strong there. Let me see, I don't know if I would put anything else in tier 1.5. I'm not quite sure. There are some things that like could move up, just depending on how things shake out, but I think for now we'll change things around if we need to. But let's move on to tier 2. I think, or you know what, okay, sorry, I'm gonna put Lucci here at the end of tier 1.5 just because he does have a good matchup into green purple. I think it's about 50-50. If green purple sees enough Sanji puddings then and sees stage early on, then it's hard for Lucci, but still think it's a good matchup. Thing is, he does struggle into blue purple. Decent into green purple, struggles into blue purple, but he is still just Lucci. He does Lucci things, and if blue purple doesn't see like multiple Sanjis and is able to play them at a good time, then I think Lucci can just kind of keep up and KO everything he needs. And you know what? Okay, I'm gonna put BY here just because I saw Ervoye do some crazy things the other week at an unofficial tournament that Kai held. Shout out to Kai and Audrey-san for putting on that 10U Cup for all the world finalists and everyone coming in for that. But I'm gonna put BY here just because I think in the right hands he's like just an insane deck. Maybe we'll move it, but I think this is pretty fair for like the 1.5 here. It's just like the aggro decks that can handle blue purple, and then the kind of control decks that can handle blue purple, and then Smoker's kind of somewhere in the middle, in between, right? Moving on to tier 2. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna put Teach here at the end too of 1.5. There might be too many here, but I think this is fair just because Teach does have a very good matchup into blue purple. ACOS, the secret rare ACOS Luffy is kind of necessary for blue purple to really just like get a foothold in the match. You can do it without Luffy, but I think it helps a lot. But most people are running between 0 to 2 of the Luffys. You can't really run 4. There's just not enough space. So Teach has a good matchup into blue purple, but I think he struggles into green purple. But even then, people figured out ways to kind of like tech around green purple with Teach. So let's go to actual tier 2 here. I think like KO Shanks has a spot here. He's good against green purple, but I think he has a similar problem with Lucci where he can struggle against blue purple. Like if they just get, you know, if blue purple, they don't need a high roll, right? They just need to not low roll, maybe hit 1 or 2 Sanjis, and then it can kind of get out of control for blue purple where Shanks can't keep up. Oh, I spotted something already. I forgot about Purple Kata. He's actually pretty strong here. I'm gonna put him, I don't know if this is too many 1.5 liters, but I'm gonna put him here for now. He just is actually really solid into both of these. He feels like Red Shanks, where he's like a lot of 50-50 matchups. If you see multiple ACOS Kata Curries, you can handle blue purple, but in the same token, I think he like doesn't have like a very like amazing all-encompassing matchup spread, but at this point, like as long as you have strong matchups into these two, I think you're okay. I think you can struggle against GP if you just don't see your blockers and aren't able to set up very well. But without a lot of KO stuff, you know what, I'll put him here. I'll put him here at the top of 2 for now. Marco has been kind of coming up in OP11 really recently. The combos with like stuff like Building Snake or Gordon or whatever, right? And the 7-cost Newgate and 8-cost Rayleigh just combined with the leader effect is really strong. It's really easy. It's easier than you might think for Marco to KO a 9k and an 8k in one turn and only lose like 1 or 2 cards from hand in doing so, especially with stuff like Monet already on the board. If you already have a Building Snake and a Monet on the board, you can like play a 9-cost Sanji into a Rayleigh and then use leader effect to start the combo and you can KO like a 9k 8k pretty easily. If you have extra resources like an additional Otama or multiple building snakes, you can KO 2 9ks, but you do start to lose resources. And again, Marco is a 4-life leader. He does have weaknesses into stuff like aggro and other KO stuff like Lucci. Again, this is pre-bans, so the bans are not in effect yet, and we're not considering that for where the placements are. Lucci is still a really strong deck until, you know, Moria and Ice Age go away, and then I don't know how he'll perform in the West, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, without Ice Age and Moria, I just don't think he'll be able to keep up with blue purple and green purple. So because of that, he's gonna fall off significantly, but we'll see how he does in the OP10 meta. Moving on, let me see. I'll put Pudding here in tier 2 just because she has a really good matchup into blue purple, but a pretty bad matchup into aggro and green purple. And I think she's been falling off because these aggro decks have kind of risen up in the more recent weeks. Yellow green Law is pretty strong against blue purple Luffy. Can have a hard time into green purple. It really depends. But I think Law struggles into decks like Bonnie, Smoker, and just these aggro kind of decks, and has a hard time against Teach, so it's hard. But a lot of the meta right now is like straight up just a ton of blue purple Luffy. So some of these decks that are like just specifically designed to target and beat Luffy are actually, you know, excelling, but it's kind of risky. Like, it's okay maybe for a flagship right now, but he probably wouldn't perform very well at like a CS where you have like whatever 8 to 10 rounds that you're playing leading into top cut. So I think because of that, we might put him at tier 3. We'll see. We can come back to this. Yamato I think can go at the very end of tier 2. Just a good matchup honestly with like the Supernova 8-cost kid build, decent into green purple, and then just with doing Yamato things, like a good matchup into blue purple. As long as you have like Hody, as long as you have leader effect and Hody, you can always beat blue purple, which is really cool. 5-cost Smoker is another strong card against that into that matchup. And there are a lot of people running even just like Straw Hat builds, or more not like trigger builds, but like mixed kind of just generic good stuff kind of builds. And there's a lot of like interesting things that are happening with Yamato right now, but just a solid leader into the very top of the meta, and you know, beat stuff like Teach, decent against BY, struggles against Bonnie. Smoker, I think it really depends on Smoker's build and if they see 8-cost kid. And then with 8-cost kid and like a more fortress style, I think Yamato can handle some of the aggro decks. So like overall, like a pretty decent position, not gonna lie. Nami, hold on, let me see if there's any other tier 2. I'd put Smoker here. Smoker is still just decent. Probably not as impactful as Lucci, just because it's harder for him to kind of KO and get the pressure against blue purple, but still a strong deck. And I'll put Kobe here at the very end of tier 2, just because Kobe I think is like an underrated leader where he really struggles against blue purple, so because of that I just can't put him any higher. But oddly enough has like a pretty good, like a strong matchup spread into like most things. You'd be surprised how strong Kobe can be. But when he loses Moria, I think he's going to take a big hit, and that's unfortunate. So shout out to all the Kobe players, and RIP. I guess maybe at the very tail end of tier 2 we'll put Doflamingo, but the problem is like he loses to green purple and he loses to blue purple. So I mean, like I don't even know. I would put him. I'd maybe even just put him at the top of tier 3. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it's kind of crazy. The other thing too is like these decks at the top, like Smoker, Bonnie, Lucci, BY, all being at the top as well. Like, man, it's just Dofi. It's crazy how Dofi fell off, man. Dofi fell off. He's just not as strong as he used to be. He really struggles against blue purple. If you can kind of like hyper aggro your start and get a really strong first couple of turns against blue purple, you can still steal the win, of course. But when he loses Jinbei, there's just going to be no way for him to keep up, in my opinion. So that's going to be even harder for him to survive post bans. All right, moving on. I included all of the new OP11 leaders, by the way. I would probably put Purple Luffy. Luffy goes here, in my opinion. I think he just kind of gets outclassed by the other purple Luffy's in green purple and blue purple. Still a strong deck. I know people have been doing interesting things with ACOS Katakuri. I wouldn't write him off. He's still like a really strong deck, and I think he has a pretty decent spread into a lot of the other decks. But yeah, he's just not explosive enough to handle the top tier. And I think just taking your life and even though you have the resources from that, and you can also use Gum Gum Giant, I don't know. He's just not performing very well. And I think it's partly just because anyone who would play Purple Luffy kind of is just like, well, I might as well just play green purple or blue purple. So he might be stronger than I'm giving him credit for, but it's just like, it's kind of that thing of like, well, why would I still play it? You know, I do think he's a strong leader though, even now. Nami will play here in tier 3. Nami's awesome. I love Nami. This leader is really, really fun. She's really, really strong, but it's the same thing with Kobe kind of at the moment, where it's like, first, the list hasn't been cracked. It's crazy. Nami, it just still has not been figured out completely. I think she's going to be kind of chilling for a little bit until she gets like more specific support or more of a true like engine that she can kind of run around. Well, I think she's very good into a lot of different types of leaders, but really struggles against blue purple. I don't think you can make a list right now that can consistently beat blue purple, and struggles a bit in a green purple. You can win that matchup. I mean, you can win blue purple too, but it requires like a little bit of luck. So just a semi bad matchup into GP and then a pretty bad matchup into blue purple just is gonna keep her down for me, unfortunately. Yellow Kid, I think, is decent. Actually, I'm gonna do this. I'll put Law here. Actually, I'm gonna put Law like here. I'm gonna put Law here. He's in the past like week or so, I think he's been performing better than Dofi. Yellow Kid is a sleeper, kind of strong pick. That's, I think, pretty decent into blue purple. Just like ACOS Kid and Life Trash and stuff like that are really, really strong. But he does struggle against. He struggles against like aggro sometimes, and definitely struggles against green purple, and then I think just also loses to like Bonnie and Lucci, and Blackbeard can be tough, and Smoker. So like just looking at basically the first top 2 tiers, like you have to dodge so much stuff and just hope you keep hitting blue purples and then also beat them in order to use Kid right now. And you can do it. Like my friend just got like, he topped a flagship the other day, so that was cool to see. He was using Yellow Kid. Usopp, I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of like where's Kobe at this point, like just as far as like where his position is and like his ability to be strong in the meta. Another one that kind of like fell from grace. He was really strong in previous metas, like even just a set or so ago. I think he just has a hard time against a lot of the top stuff, and I think he can struggle against aggro as well. So it's weird. It's so crazy how much like once certain decks go away, how like when they stop gatekeeping things, how the floodgates get opened, and like seeing Bello Betty just destroy blue purple and be like, I mean, you could put Bello Betty like right here and I wouldn't even be mad. I'm just putting Zoro here because he's a cool guy. Like the tier 1.5, don't worry about the ordering as much. I do think blue purple is a little bit ahead though, but I don't want to get off topic here. Usopp I don't think he's really able to perform very well. And again, like all this could change. People could figure something out. Somebody maybe just needs the right pilot. I hate to be like saying, I don't want to say these decks are bad, you know. People get really upset when I put something in like tier 2 or 3, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of just going off of the data and what we've seen. All right, so like don't hate the player, hate the game, right? That's what I'll say. Shirahoshi, like dude, I can put Shirahoshi above these two. It's crazy. I personally have been playing Shirahoshi lately, and she's another kind of semi-sleeper pick, like pretty strong. Just struggles into certain removal, and like if like Uroko is a 6 cost, and if she just had a 7 cost that could get around 9 cost mom that you could play out, like even if it was just a 7/7, I don't even care. If it, like 7/8, just give it a 7/8 because vanilla. If you could play that, I think she would actually be really, really strong against like blue purple. Because with the right build, you can beat a lot of these decks. There's some really cool builds that people have been putting out with like 5 cost Smoker, and the top end is really flexible too. You can choose whatever you like. I think 9 cost Shanks works really well in the build, and you just run stuff like Hody and the 6 cost Jinbei if you want. Really, really strong leader. Needs a little bit more support, and I think it was just unfortunate that her like best card to play off of leader effect is still a 6 cost, so it's just very vulnerable to Like not only removal like grab blade and all that kind of stuff, but just 9-cost bomb in blue purple Luffy like is the litmus test of like if you're gonna run a 6-cost or lower, it needs to give you so much value that you just don't mind losing it to 9-cost bomb, or have stuff like green Tashigi that can kind of like protect you. Jinbei Ske, the Bei to my Jin, pretty strong. I had a little bit higher hopes for Jinbei, but like he won a flagship and he's been doing pretty well, but you know, nothing too crazy, to be honest. Nothing too crazy. I honestly put him kind of like up here, maybe at the top of tier 3. I think he's just had a little bit better results than most of these people. But yeah, it's just kind of lacking. It's still the tale as old as time, where it's like if you're playing mono green, you kind of might as well play Bonnie. I'm happy that I love playing Bonnie, and she's like one of my favorite leaders of all time, because it does feel sad. Like I was really excited for Jinbei and I've been playing him, but yeah, it's kind of the thing where it's just like, it's also the similar thing where like 6-cost Jinbei is amazing, but it gets removed by 9-cost mom. So what are you gonna do, right? Plus with no top end, they just didn't give Fishman any top end that's to use at all. So like we could have had like a searchable boss monster for Fishman that works in Shirahoshi and Jinbei. They just didn't do it. I don't know why. Bandai is really weird about some of this stuff. So hopefully in the future they get more support like that. Anel, oh, man, this is kind of hard. I'll put Anel here. He's still really strong in OP11 until the bans. Once Raigo goes, I think he's kind of just out the window. Yeah, he's just really hard. It's exactly like kind of Nami, where bad matchups into the top 2 leaders, but you do decent against a lot of other stuff, and it's just Anel. He just doesn't die. I don't think I could put him at tier 3. He got a decent amount of flagship wins and like did okay in the tournament space, like unofficial tournament space, but yeah. Red purple Luffy, I'll throw him a bone here. I think he's still decent and still like a strong leader, but kind of just struggles a bit, and maybe I'm putting Dofi too low here. Yeah, hold on. All right, maybe like this, okay. I hate to put too many leaders on just one tier, but I think this might be okay. Like if you ask me for like today, like today's Dofi would be like in tier 3, but I think he got enough wins and has been still strong in tournaments and stuff. He's still there, he's still out there, he's still chilling. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm kind of just going like off of the perceived strength and not looking at like the actual how strong Dofi has still been in the OP11 meta. I think like the top of tier 2 is fair. I think that's fair to say. Some of this is my own like thoughts, and like keeping BY here is like maybe a hot take. Maybe he should be tier 2. In fact, let's do this. Let's do this. This is it. This is where I would put the list. The ordering for 1.5, 2, and 3, you know, it's kind of like, take it with a grain of salt. You could move things around if you want. I know I have a lot of leaders on tier 2. I think tier 1.5 is fair. I think it's pretty fair. I think just the main thing is like, how strong are you into the best top 2 decks? And if you're good into both of them, then I think you deserve to be in 1.5. If you only have like a decent matchup into one of them, or are just generically strong for other stuff, I think you're in tier 2, and then tier 3 is kind of like, you know, pretty strong, but just lacking and not strong enough. But that's gonna be it. This is the tier list. Let me know if you've been playing in the East over here. If not, I guess let me know what you think. Are you excited for this kind of meta? I know the West is about to enter a crazy format of their own with the bans going into effect early in OP10. And actually, I'm a little jealous. Yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it gave you a nice little insight into how the past couple of weeks of the OP11 meta have been going. I'll make a new one once the bans are in effect and we see how that kind of affects things. I don't think things will change too much, to be honest, but I do think a few things will change, and then we'll be leading up into the starter decks that are coming at the end of June. Check out the other YouTube videos on my channel, and I have been streaming lately, not over on Twitch, but on YouTube. So please keep an eye out for that. If you're interested, join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, all that jazz. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.